What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the NeoVintage podcast. I'm Jabril, and I'm with
Steve. How you guys doing?
And for you guys who haven't watched the show before, we're just two guys that like to talk over the biggest stories in gaming, and we always like to start with what we've been playing. So, Steve, what have you been playing?
So, obviously, continuing off last week, still just trucking through the titan that is Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yeah,
that game
tell me about
is
it.
So big. I was up till like 1 a.m. last night playing, so I'm at the final chapter, which I guess no spoilers because I looked it up without spoilers. It's just apparently like 4 or 5 bosses back to back.
Okay.
So I was like, I think this is a good place to stop, and then so pretty much next time I sit down with it, I'll probably finish it. Really liking it. I absolutely hate chapter 14, which is was chapter filler is what it was.
Yeah.
But I think we'll say that for when we do another big discussion when we both complete it.
Yeah, we could do it like a spoiler cast when we both beat it.
Yeah, for sure. But again, I really like it. But again, that's the one chapter that I was just like, ugh, grind. But besides that, because I've had so much time, I actually hooked up my PlayStation VR. Played a little, really? Which is funny because the first thing I played, and I didn't do it purposely, was Job Simulator. And,
really? Wow.
As I was
great
playing, great game. But as I was playing it, I was like, how ironic is that my full-time job I'm not working at right now due to the circumstances, and I was like, my first instinct was to go to a office cubicle.
That's hilarious.
So besides that, I've been pretty much still early on, but dabbling in Phantasy Star Online 2 on the Xbox One.
Yes.
So I really like it. I don't know why. I was under the impression I was like, oh, it's gonna be cybernetic Monster Hunter, and Monster Hunter is great. I appreciate the series. It's not really for me. There's something a little bit more snappy, crisp in the actual combat and gameplay in Phantasy Star Online that I just really enjoy. So that's really been captivating me between like my Final Fantasy sessions.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been playing a lot of Final Fantasy as well. I just hit about 21 hours in. I'm like decently into chapter 16 now, so I don't know exactly where that falls in terms of the narrative. I have a good sense of probably where they're going to cut this off, in terms of its place in the original Final Fantasy VII, but I've heard a lot of weird things about the ending, so I have no clue where they're going to go narratively from where I'm at right now. But yeah, I'm fairly deep into it, I would imagine, and I'm kind of focusing most of my attention on there, but obviously I can't play like a million hours every single day, so my progress in it has slowed since those first 2 weekends, or first weekend that I played it.
Yeah.
For some reason, when I'm on break at my job, since I'm working from home, I wanted something to kind of just play in the room, so I hooked up my the PlayStation Classic, because I was like, well, I want to play the original Final Fantasy VII kind of at the same time of the remake for some reason, because I'm nuts. And I had hooked up my original PS1, and I was like, you know what I could use in this is save states, so I can just pick it up and stop whenever I want, because I can't just play for an hour and a half when I'm on my break. So I hooked up my PlayStation Classic, and I've been playing Final Fantasy VII, the original version, on that with save states and everything like that. And yeah, I mean, it's super fun. It's really weird playing both at the same time, just experiencing the differences, and just the biggest difference obviously is the way they're paced. Again, like, the remake has managed to take a certain section of the original and kind of just stretch it and fill it in and explore places they've never explored in the original one. When now that you go back to the original, it feels like they're moving at Mach speed, and there's so much content over long periods of time, over vast distances, and so many places. So it's a whole different experience. So that's really weird and jarring to play them both at the same time. But I'm a nutcase, and I thought that was going to be a good idea. So I don't know if I'm going to stick with that. I've also kind of set up what I'm going to do after I beat Final Fantasy. So Far Cry 4 went on sale, and I played a lot of 3, 5, and New Dawn, and 4 is just the one for some reason I never dived into, and I played Primal too. For some reason I never played 4, so it went on sale. It was like $7 or something like that. I was like, and you know what, now's the time, and it doesn't look like they're probably going to add it to Game Pass anytime soon for some reason, so I was like, you know what, let me just download that and play it. So I haven't played that yet, but that's probably what I'm going to dive into right after Final Fantasy, and I mean, for the most part, it's been all hands on deck with Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big game to really try to get through. I'm excited to get to the point where I beat it, can discuss the ending, and just put it away for a little bit, because it's really, it feels like sometimes like I'm just in there forever doing sections, and it's enjoyable, but man, I get tired, you know?
Yeah, it's like the Final Fantasy as a series has gone forward so much, but it's small moments in Final Fantasy VII Remake that remind you that, hey, still a Final Fantasy game. Don't let the new style of gameplay and that kinetic action and the beautiful visuals confuse you. No, this is still a Final Fantasy game. That means there's going to be a certain degree of backtracking and a certain degree of grinding and these strange side quests that of varying weight. Some of them are going to feel like, oh, I'm glad I did this side quest because, it offered a lot of, heartfelt plot and stuff like that. And then other ones are going to be like, why'd you just have me do this for an hour and a half? Like, so it ranges in terms of depth, and depending on your attachment to the series, your mileage may vary on how much you actually like it.
Yeah, that's true. Because that Johnny stuff, not to get into come on. Some of that stuff is funny, and the other times I'm just like, I kind of did it because I knew there was a trophy attached to him, so I did it just to pop the trophy. But
yeah, no spoilers. I just completed the 24th side quest yesterday, which I think that's everything.
Yeah, so I did that as well because there's no more sections, and I didn't pop the trophy that tells me to do all missions. I don't know if they're counting the main story missions.
Yeah, perhaps, because that's what I was waiting for too. I didn't get a trophy for it or anything. It kind of just happened, and I looked, and there was no other quest. And
I sat around and grinded like some nonsense, and if you don't get them, if I would have known the missions were laid out that way, I probably would have went and got all the missions first because of the way I did them, pretty much one at a time or two at a time. Tons of backtracking, especially for the Corneo's stashes and stuff.
Those are. Whew.
I was like, man, I walked by this.
You don't know where to go, yeah.
Yeah, I walked by certain sections like 3 times. I'm like, if I would have known, I could have done 2 or 3 of them at a time. But we'll get more into that when we do our full episode on it.
Yeah, for sure.
So getting into the stories, it's kind of a lighter week, but a few different good topics to discuss. First one that kind of broke, at least I saw it this morning, which is the Portuguese voice actor Philip Durate, who portrayed Deacon St. John in the Portuguese dub of Days Gone, did pass away this past Friday of a heart attack at 46 years old. So our condolences to him and respect to his family. And I know he was a big, apparently he's a really big famous actor over there in Portugal and all in that area. So our condolences to the family. Our thoughts are with them.
Yeah. I mean, that's rough. I'm not really familiar with this dub. I actually haven't gotten the chance to look into it. But it's a shame when somebody that young, loses their life, unfortunately. And big condolences over them.
Yeah.
All right, so our next story is a quick mention. I just wanted to give you guys a heads up. PlayStation dropped a new initiative. It's called Play at Home, and with social distancing still in place due to the coronavirus epidemic, Sony is giving away some free PlayStation 4 games to keep players entertained. Both Journey and Uncharted, the Nathan Drake collection, are available for free in the United States. I believe the Nathan Drake collection is actually swapped with Knack 2 abroad. For some reason, I have no clue. But I just wanted to give you guys a heads up. Those are 2 amazing games. I mean, the Uncharted collection, you don't get much better than that in terms of PlayStation exclusives. Mm-hmm. And Journey is an amazing experience from I believe, the PS3 generation. But it still kind of maintains its, mainstream relevance to this day. So just wanted to give you guys a heads up. If you guys have a PlayStation console, hop on that. Give that a shot if you haven't thus far. They're amazing experiences. And you'll get more than enough time out of it. Those are kind of like an amazing drop to release during an epidemic like this, because if you're looking for experience to take your mind away from the circumstances and do it for hours on end, you can get 10-15 hours each in terms of the Uncharted game. So having all 3 like that's an amazing offer.
The only quick mention, in addition to that, so these games were free at some point for PS Plus.
Yes, they were.
But if you have PS Plus and obviously you let it lapse, you get no access to these games. If you do go in there now and redeem them, the expiration date is erased, so you permanently add it to your catalog. So even people who have PS Plus and are like, because initially I was like, I have those on PS Plus. Then I kind of heard about this, checked it out, and it's like, well, now I can truly own it in a world that I let PS Plus lapse for a little bit. They will permanently be added to your catalog. So everyone should just go and definitely put those in your library.
Yeah, and hopefully this is not the end of it. I'd love if they dropped a couple more, maybe older exclusives that have since gone by the wayside. You know, like Order 1886 or stuff, little stuff that they own. That'd be cool if they offered. Just make your catalog from the early PS4 days maybe more available and accessible to people in this time. That'd be great. But hey, I'll take anything at this point.
Yeah, I think they should do Killzone Shadowfall actually.
Oh, that'd be amazing,
with the rumors that there's a new Killzone coming out. How else do you amp people up for it by giving them the previous one for free? So.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So going into another story, I always end up getting the Resident Evil storylines, which I'm okay with that. I like that. I'm a Capcom guy.
I know you love them.
I'm a Capcom guy. So this broke a little bit after we recorded last week, but it was all kind of rumors and stuff like that. So there are reports that Capcom plans to release a Resident Evil 4 remake in 2022. That would put it 1 year after the supposed rumored Resident Evil 8 and only a year after that they just launched Resident Evil 3. And obviously Resident Evil 2 came out last year. So the report cites multiple development sources have indicated that the Resident Evil 4 remake is now in full production, development headed by Tetsuya Minami of M2, which was a story not too long ago that, you know, they were rumored to be working with Capcom on a sort of survival horror game. And people kind of were guessing Resident Evil 4 remake. I didn't think it was going to be true. If they do a Resident Evil 4 remake, it would have to be in the vein of like Final Fantasy VII almost, not extending it to like 7 parts or whatever. But you got to really, really do it. Just making the graphics pretty and maybe making Leon walk and shoot at the same time is not going to cut it because of that game's constant resurgence. I mean, it's on PS4, Xbox One, PC constantly, Switch even has it. So are you excited for this? I've never been I enjoy Resident Evil 4, but I've never been like a diehard that's the best Resident Evil game.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of this is very intriguing to me. 4 is probably the one that I have the largest attachment to in terms of all the Resident Evil games. And if I have to go back to an older one, I'm probably going to 4 before I'm going to a lot of the other ones. So the 2 and 3 remake were exciting to me, but those I didn't really have like a kindred connection to those games. So 4 is the one that I'd probably actually rush to play the most. But again, yeah, they have to do this justice, and it's interesting that we live in a reality where Capcom's basically annualized Resident Evil. It seems like that's the direction they're taking it. Is they're going to swap between mainline entries and remakes maybe to get as close to annualization as possible, which is interesting. I'm curious to see how this plays out. It's incredibly ambitious, and 4 was not the direction I think they hit quite yet just because of the sheer ambition of it. I thought they would have maybe went to a Resident Evil 0 or a Code Veronica before they touch 4, just because, again, this is a massive undertaking. And to give it to M2, who, again, Tetsuya Minami is no joke. If you know his work from like the Platinum days and his early Capcom stuff, this guy's no joke. And this team, if they had anything to do with 3, it depends on what aspect of 3 they had something to do with. I doubt they had anything to do with the narrative. It's probably more engine stuff. That game runs great. So if that's what their contribution is, that makes me really excited for them to be able to take on 4. I can't speak as to, how this is all going to turn out. I don't know. It's still, I guess this is not technically Capcom in-house. This is something that they're financed and it'll probably be published by Capcom, but this is kind of, in a way, giving it to another team. So that's an interesting choice in and of itself. But Capcom are on kind of a high right now, so I have faith that they must see that this is something that could be delivered by M2. It's a newer team. It's their most beloved property. Again, this reminds me a little bit of that whole, Final Fantasy VII Remake going to Cyber Connect thing. It's like, why wouldn't you do this in-house? Not equating M2 and Cyber Connect, but it's an interesting choice to take your most beloved property and to not kind of have all hands on deck on that. That's an interesting choice, but maybe they're just doing that with 8. And they're kind of just treating this maybe with a Shadow of the Colossus Bluepoint type situation, maybe.
Yeah.
Where they're taking kind of like a third party team that's, well renowned, good talents over there, and kind of having them deal with it, because again, it's going to be faithful to the original. The kind of groundwork is there, and maybe they're just kind of cleaning up assets and making this world kind of have like a modern take on it and playing a little bit with the narrative, but they're not building something from the ground up, as opposed to like 8, where they probably want all their writers there, all their best programmers there and developers and stuff like that. So I mean, it's interesting. I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt right now, because yes, 3 was a little bit of a miss, but I mean, hey man, they knocked it out of the park with 2. And the RE engine is pretty impressive. So I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt here, but I think it's something that one thing they haven't formally announced it yet. We have to keep that in mind, and it has yet to be seen what exact direction they're taking it in.
Yeah, because again, obviously Resident Evil 4, the ports that we've been getting aren't in the new engine, so that don't get me wrong, it'd be probably fantastic to see that world. Maybe add a little bit more color, because I've always thought Resident Evil 4 always had such a tan, gray looking kind of feel to it.
Yeah.
Whereas Resident Evil 2 and 3, especially with the city, kind of plays with the lights and the colors like that, and just makes the world a little bit more vibrant and like enjoyable to be around. But maybe, I don't know, including more characters somehow, maybe, that's why I was under the not impression, but the guess that they would probably go with like Code Veronica and stuff, because timeline, you want to see what these characters have been doing and stuff before. Give us some time. I'm only worried that I don't feel like Resident Evil is one of those series that needs to be annulated, because you lose a little bit of the magic like that, and horror games are hard when you do that, like annualization constantly, and most games now can't survive that. I mean, even if you think like not dumb, but a smaller scale game like Five Nights at Freddy's, that game was dropping 3 games a year, and after the third one I immediately stopped caring, because I was like, in 2 more months you'll see they're going to release another one. I don't want that to be... I know Resident Evil's on a way different scale than that, but I don't want it to get to the point where, Ubisoft learned their lesson. They had to slow it down with the annualization, because the stuff gets really bad. You had a high, with Assassin's Creed 2, Brotherhood, and then immediately the third one was a little bit less, and then the third... what was the third one? Revelations was the last one with Ezio. And, you see the quality decline when you don't have the passion and the time to really bring it up to par to your standard and your fans' standard and the game they deserve, because, we are paying for your game. So it all really goes hand in hand. At the same time, like you said, Capcom is on a high. They're doing really well. I feel like they know what they're doing. I'd be kind of surprised if they crank out so many Resident Evils and they haven't touched some of their other stuff yet. I know everyone keeps asking for like Dino Crisis for some reason, which I actually think would probably do really well with the lack of like Turok games and stuff like that. And like obviously Beautiful Joe and all they have such a big library that they could be spreading it out a little bit more, because that'll be 5 Resident Evil games consecutive. That's kind of a lot. I was nervous about 2 and 3 even being so close together, and obviously that was supposed to be one kind of package, but we'll see how they do it. And I'd love to play it. Obviously, no matter what, I'm gonna get it day one, most likely. So
yeah, I mean, annualizing's difficult, and I've only really seen it offhand that I can think of successful in 2 ways, and there's 2 ways to go about it. You got the sports franchises that kind of build upon the framework of the previous years and kind of add roster stuff, play with the engine a little bit stuff, and that is what they do. That is what that team is dedicated to. And they do it at a really high level, and it's really impressive what they do, in terms of like the Madden games, the FIFA games, and stuff like that. The other way to do it is something like Activision does with Call of Duty, but again, they have multiple teams. That is also what they do. Mm-hmm. So, and you got like, complementary teams too. So, I mean, you got the Infinity Wars, you got the Treyarchs, you got the Sledgehammer, you even got Raven coming in there. So we're talking about a mass amount of people dedicated to one game on 3-year cycles, and that's how they annualize it. Mm-hmm. But to have 1 team or 2 teams, I don't know if Capcom can scale on that level, and that remains to be seen. I'm just worried. I think it's a bigger chance that they end up more like Ubisoft than an Activision.
Yeah,
if anything.
For sure.
And I mean, Ubisoft's a massive company, and they took a beloved property like Assassin's Creed, and I mean, things were rough for that for a while. And again, it's hard to imagine for some people now that they're coming off the high of Origins and Odyssey, and everybody's anticipating whatever that game ultimately be called. It's rumored that it's Ragnarok and all that. It's on a real high right now because they were able to reinvent the game. But for a while, I mean, following Black Flag and stuff like that, things were rough for that franchise. And there was a point where people were like, oh, Assassin's Creed is dead. Nobody cares about it anymore. Only the hardcore care about it. And luckily, they were able to rebound by giving themselves a little bit more time to breathe. And I just don't want to see Capcom have to go through that, where they drop, 5, 6, 7 Resident Evil games in a row. And just the returns are diminishing to the point where Resident Evil no longer holds any special value. And then they have to pull back again. I'd rather them not have to go through the high and low, and rather just pace themselves and make it mean something when they come out. But again, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt right now. They're kind of on a weird, shaky ground with 3. It's kind of mixed results, but it's not enough for me to say that, it's a lost cause. But ultimately, we'll see once 8 comes out, if that comes out, and the 4 remake comes out, and we'll see how the returns are and see how they run. Then I think that's the moment we'll know if Capcom can actually handle that load.
Yeah, that's true. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, so the next game, or the next story we have is actually a follow-up of a previous week's. So I mentioned that there's going to be monthly releases of like Danganronpa news. And so finally we have our kind of first major drop, which is the mainline Danganronpa games are announced from mobile platforms. So during a live stream, Spike Chunsoft announced that the three mainline Danganronpa games are coming to phones. Now, this actually makes all the sense in the world. They are going to play with the UI a little bit to make it run a little bit better on phones. But for you guys who have played Danganronpa, you all know they're not incredibly demanding games that require like a crazy amount of movement and stuff like that. It's mostly investigative. The closest analog I could say is something closer to like a Professor Layton, if anything. It's a more passive experience. So it makes all the sense in the world that it run on phones, not to mention phone gaming is massive in Japan. And Danganronpa holds more relevance in Japan than anywhere else in the world. So it makes sense why they just would tap into another, industry or, line of people playing, another player base that, would latch on in their home country. So it makes all the sense in the world. It's not enough that I would necessarily run and play them again. Not really. I mean, these are long games that I played not too long ago. So I'm more so waiting for new releases. But I mean, I feel like the amount of work to get this going is minimal at the most. And if anything, they're just gaining a whole bunch of money and a whole new player base of people who maybe haven't given it a shot before because they didn't have a PSP, they didn't have a Vita, or they didn't have a PlayStation console in general. So it makes sense to open that up, and hopefully, both iOS and Android alike are able to play it at the same time to just give everybody a chance, so there's no real excuse at this point. Are you excited about this?
I'm excited for Danganronpa to get more mainstream. Obviously, just having it on the App Store and the Google Play Store and probably be pretty, high up in the like most recommended or most paid for apps are exciting. Obviously, 'cause I really don't think they're going to do any way to do a free to play version, so I'm really excited. Maybe put like the first chapter for free.
Yeah.
Or whatever, like a little tutorial to kind of let you get your feet wet. But I'm excited for this. Again, I'm not probably going to play it on my iPhone just because it's just I don't really use my iPhone for gaming or anything like that, or if I had an Android, the same. If they were to release it maybe on Switch, I'd probably would pick it up there just to have the trilogy there, play it on a bigger screen, the crisp colors and stuff like that. But yeah, I've just recently played it. I still haven't even finished the third one yet. So to really want to replay those games, I got to be really in the mood and not doing much else. Because not that they're the most demanding games, but they're long. A lot of dialogue. The investigations aren't too...
It's complex, yeah.
Complex and stuff like that. It makes sense, especially for the second one where you're doing the court cases and, there's a lot of touchscreen involved on the Vita with, like, the swords and that weird minigame they did.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that makes sense on the iPhone. It makes a perfect sense on an iPhone. I don't, if someone who was interested in the series and never jumped in because of console restrictions, I think that would be a perfect place to play it. I don't see why you would have any issues or a less valued experience because of that, because there's no reason an iPhone couldn't run that. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited for Danganronpa to get a little bit more popular. Maybe we see a couple more adaptations. I know we never got the anime. We never got the anime series for the second game for some reason, and I know they did the companions for V3. So hopefully kind of fill those gaps in too, because I thought the first anime did pretty well.
Really, super faithful.
Yeah, especially that's a lot of game. There's a lot of game to adapt. So I think they did like 12 episodes. I think was season 1 was, I think, pretty good. So hopefully get a couple more of those. I just hope, they're probably using this to test the waters. And we do have more announcements coming next month. So we'll see. Don't lose hope. Whoever out there wanted something specific from them, there's probably more games, animes, and even more manga and stuff like that to come. So I'm excited. There's more Danganronpa, more places. It all sounds good.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. All right, so a story that's been breaking, not breaking, but rumored for years, obviously, because this is the world we live in. So Grand Theft Auto 6 is now, quote-unquote, definitely in early development. Now, we've been getting GTA 6 rumors since, like, immediately after GTA 5, especially when it really got popular on the PS4 and stuff like that. But Apparently, according to a Kotaku report, Rockstar is working on a new GTA title that's in very early development. You gotta realize these are the team, though they have huge teams and lots of employees and great talent there. They did finish, Red Dead. What's been 2 years, 1 year, 2?
2 years.
2 years. So going on 2 years, it's been. So obviously they've been working on their other titles. I still believe there is another title before we get GTA 6. I'm also curious if GTA 6 is actually GTA 6, if it's not just a new online
expansion or something.
MMO like GTA experience, which I think would probably be a step in the wrong direction. Because I think GTA Online works because you have such a solid single player, and we see that with Red Dead. Red Dead's online is not as highly regarded as Grand Theft Auto's, but the single player is untouched because it is perfect. So I'm curious if specifically if it's GTA 6 or if it's GTA colon something else and it's like a completely online experience. I've always liked the GTA titles. I always dabble with them. I never really get like super into them. I did beat GTA 5 once, and I think I got the best ending I could get or something like that. But I know you're a bigger fan of Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, most definitely. As for this GTA 6 news, again, I think it's a good observation on your part that this can take many forms. Mm-hmm. It could be a GTA 6. It could be something related to GTA Online. I know in terms of the future of GTA, the online component is guaranteed to be a part of that. They give up single player before they give up this online. Just the amount of, we're talking billions of dollars that they've generated from this online thing. It's one of the most successful online titles of all time. It's still selling incredibly well. And though the story mode aspect of GTA 5 is an important part of it and had a great deal of relevance when it came out. This game came out in 2013. This is 7 years ago. So when we're talking about the newer acquisitions of this game in 2020, probably for the past, 5 years or so, this is more so acquisitions for the online component of it. So you're kind of talking about two different fan bases. There's the GTA Online people who have never touched the Michael, Franklin, Trevor story. They know nothing about that. It's kind of like some like Call of Duty people on a bigger scale. Like some people go straight to the online, some people like the campaign. These are almost like two different groups. And I think Rockstar gives up on the single player people before they give up on the online people. However, I think ultimately the future involves both. They're obviously committed to some degree of campaign, again, with their Red Dead aspect. Like that was an experience that prioritized the campaign over the online. And it's almost kind of the opposite now with GTA, where they focused on the online. So I don't know if they now, going into future, their campaign, all the writers, all hands on deck, go on to the kind of the Red Dead. That's going to be their single player offering. And then, GTA is more of an online experience because that's just where the money is funneling in. And GTA allows them to make, single player campaign games like Red Dead. It kind of finances them. I don't know if we get a GTA 6 campaign because I don't know how much that campaign holds mainstream relevance and is worth worth it in the bottom line. I don't know. But I think in some capacity it shows up. I just don't know if it's going to have that online integration. I don't know if you get a full offline GTA 6. I don't know if that's necessarily the direction they want to go in or that makes enough financial sense. I will give it a try no matter what. I was a big fan of GTA 5. I've played it for years now. I still dabble in it, for the past 7 years. I've kind of dipped in and out of it. So it's kind of a big part of my gaming history. So, and I think it's important to understand what they mean by early development too. I think it's nuts to think that, for the past 7 years, they've been twiddling their thumbs with GTA and they have not dealt with it. And they're just now being like, hey, you want to make GTA 6? All right, let's get started. I think that's nuts. Obviously, since they've seen enormous success with 5, it's been in some degree of pre-production. I just think active development is probably what they're in the early stages of now in terms of building that world, building assets, forming a strong narrative. I think that's what's happening now. But the pre-production has to have been going on for years now. I mean, they have investors, they have stakeholders that demand, like, hey, this property that you have massive amounts of money coming in from, where's the sequel for that? That has to have happened for their bottom line and just for the nature of the industry. There's always something new being created and funded. So when a lot of people are kind of going online and losing their minds like they're just starting now. I think it's important to understand that there's a certain level of like clickbait journalism happening right here, right now. That GTA 6 is kind of like a trigger word and has people clicking on the stories. I think this is, for the most part, a non-story. We don't get too much new information here other than Rockstar saying concretely, hey, a new title is coming. But for the most part, this is something that has been in development in some degree for years now. And they're probably just finally moving resources and manpower into development of GTA 6 directly, as opposed to kind of it being a side thing incubating in the deepest levels of Rockstar. That's been happening probably for the past 7 years, realistically. So that's probably mostly what's going on here. It's coming. It's probably, again, not going to be something we get until probably the midpoint of next gen, realistically. It's years off, most definitely. But it's I seriously doubt, and I'm willing to put money down, this is not something they're just beginning. They're just beginning super active development, in my view.
Yeah, for sure. You have to realize that. So somehow, I don't know how they do it over there, but Rockstar usually keeps things pretty under wraps.
Yeah.
They usually don't have big leaks. I know, anytime there are some sort of like quote unquote leaks, it's usually like Rockstar is slowly, like they were releasing that the V for Grand Theft Auto 5 with the money symbols, and they were the ones quote unquote leaking it for hype. Obviously, that's advertisement and stuff like that. So they're not ones to leak. Obviously, yeah, GTA 6 has been in at least talks from early on, as you have people move as GTA 5 was wrapping up. People were then moving on to Red Dead 2, which obviously was a bigger portion. And then, it's not like as soon as they finish GTA 5, they're like, now we start on Red Dead. No, the engine is there. They have to start building the world. You have to start getting voice actors and motion cap. And, they did a lot of research on, like, what fish lived in what ponds. Like, there's all this other stuff that goes into it. Developing from the get-go right now would be ridiculous. You wouldn't see another GTA till, almost the end of the PS5 and Xbox Series cycle, which is obviously not going to happen. So people do need to calm down. Like you said, people are also so anticipated. You got to realize there are not, quote unquote non-gamers that only play GTA. When I worked at GameStop like 2 years ago, constantly people would be coming in, oh, I saw the leak of Grand Theft Auto 6, you can drive the whole United States, when can I pre-order it?
Yeah.
And I would just be like, I gotta be nice because I was being paid, but I was like, bro, come on, they haven't even announced it. Come on, they just released whatever Back to the Future cars in GTA 5 online, so they're not gonna let stuff like that leak. Rockstar is way too big to let that kind of dumb stuff leak. But like you said, it is a trigger word. People are excited. I think people just kind of have to wait. I have a feeling that they're probably gonna release another, because they were teasing like they had another game kind of in the works. It'll probably be a smaller game.
Could be like a Bully or something.
Yeah, like a Bully, because Bully isn't, especially in this day and age, I'd love to see how a Bully would work. But with so many sensitive and different kind of variables. But that would be a smaller game where he was living in boarding school, right, in Bully?
Yeah, it was fairly self-contained.
Yeah,
there was a little town around it too.
That's a smaller thing you can do, and obviously there will be the Rockstar touches with go to the tennis court and get your stamina up and stuff like that. But the storyline will be a little bit more fast-paced than Red Dead, instead of taking a sweet time, waiting it, getting diseases and stuff like that won't happen per se in Bully. Would be a whole lot different. But I probably would expect one more smaller title before you even get the full-fledged GTA 6. Because when GTA 6 is going to come out, you're going to know. It's not going to sneak up on anyone.
No, and it's one of those things that it's kind of like a guaranteed thing to happen. It's just a matter of when. Yeah. And I know it's like 7 years old, at this point, GTA 5, but the returns haven't slowed down. So from a Rockstar point of view, they have no reason to rush. It's not like GTA by any means is a dead property. If anything, it's bigger than it's ever been. So they can really take their time here. Red Dead is still, a popular thing. Their name is still in the popular, mainstream conversation. So the whole idea, it's like, where's GTA 6? It's been forever. It's like they have zero reason to rush things, because again, their bottom line is not hurting. They are not hurting for money right now. Their games are still selling. It's still like in the top 10 sold across all consoles for years now. Yeah. So there's no reasons for them to crank out a GTA 6 sooner than it needs to be. So if they come out launch next gen, mid next gen, or even on the tail end of next gen, they're going to be all right. And people are going to play it no matter what, and that's going to buy them another 10 years to work on the next property, GTA 7 or whatever it is. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to show up in some capacities. It's just a matter of when, not if.
Yeah, and you got to realize that they're taking their time because they do care about the IP, the property, and the fan base. They're not taking their time because they're lazy. They're taking their time because they want to at least match the success of 5, if not blow it out the water. So that's what's really taking their time, is because they could have cranked one out really quick. They didn't do any DLC story-based wise, obviously. Surprisingly, even though there was some rumors they were doing that. So, that's what they're doing. They want their game to be up to par. And, you don't want to do less than what you did to your previous, game. You want to blow it out of the water. You want to get better with your sequels, not, you don't want to dilute it and get worse.
Yeah, and I mean, they have the massive task of how do you outdo GTA 5.
Yeah.
GTA 5 built upon the framework of 4, which built upon the framework of Vice City, San Andreas and 3. So they've always kind of, upped the ante with each release. And 5 was just, we're talking about a seriously big game. And not just so much in the map size, but in terms of content offered, all these years later and the amount they put into it. So how do you one-up that? I think that's something that they probably even have trouble answering, but they're, figuring it out, and it takes time to do that. So when they come out, they're obviously a developer and publisher that like to invest in their properties and double down on it and put down the work and the money into these properties once they come out for years to come. So they don't want to come out, with the same set of issues that they bumped into with 5, so they have to make sure the online is their day one. They're not going to bump into that situation again where they launch a game without that aspect and just kind of cut off that money supply.
Yeah.
So they have a big Herculean level task for them to figure out, and that's going to obviously take time. So we'll keep an eye on that.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll hear something from them soon.
Okay, so the last story we have is a pretty big one, and it's something that we all anticipated happening, but we kind of have a little bit more information on it from some credible sources. So we have a Bloomberg report to come from. According to Bloomberg, the PS5 is still planned to launch in 2020, but Sony could reportedly ship fewer PS5 consoles than it did with PS4 back in 2013. This decision apparently is not directly related to the COVID-19 pandemic, but rather competition with the Xbox Series X and pricing instead. And it seems like the kind of parts system, that, the kind of scarcity in terms of parts that we've talked about in previous weeks. An expected high price at launch will result in lower demand, and this is all projections, leading to a decrease in production. As a result, the company is only planning to make 5 to 6 million units by March 2021. That's the whole quarter from launch to quarter 2. This is roughly 2 million units fewer than the 7.5 Sony made for PS4 launch. I think another factor that they're not mentioning here again is the fact that they'll be launching a console during a recession, possibly depression. That also affects console demand, not just a higher price in and of itself. So what do you think about all this?
Yeah, we have to remember that PlayStation 5, gaming in general is more of a luxury hobby and a luxury choice.
Yep.
So when we're in, this sort of depression, recession talk, and hopefully by then a major recovery from the situations we're dealing with now, people are going to be way more skeptical about dropping $500, $550, whatever, $600 in total, not not just the system, but in total, for a luxury device to be playing 1 or 2 games when you have a perfectly good PS4, you got a perfectly good Switch. I think, again, there's a lot of factors in play. They say it's not directly related to the COVID-19 pandemic. Obviously, that has a small part to play, because I think they're not dumb. They know that people aren't going to be rushing to get these. They're not going to not demand it because they don't want it. It's going to be more of a wait and see, going to hope for a deal or buy it used. And, there's the people who always say, oh, I let the first people buy it because launch systems are always bad. That's going to convince some people because they are going to be worried about their $500 to $600 investment. I think it's, expectations and all these speculations are always weird from companies and their stockholders when they do these kind of things, because you never know with it. Honestly, they expected nobody to want the PS4 camera, and then when the PS4 came out, everybody wanted a camera. So that's just a small device. So imagining the whole console that they expect, not many people are going to demand it. But what happens when people start demanding it? What happens when you never know when you have a killer app that's gonna just like move systems? You know, Microsoft, Bill Gates, and all them, they didn't know Halo was gonna be that big. I know they talk about it like they knew they had this Ace card. They had no idea that Halo was gonna be like moving systems. So you never know when your console's really gonna hit a stride. I mean, Switch right now hit such a stride due to the situation we're in, and people can't find them. You know, I look just for fun sometimes, and the Switches are nowhere, and the demands are high, and you're getting scalpers and stuff like that. So it causes more problems that I think they're not worrying about. They're not making these consoles because, yeah, like you said, it's probably more of the manufacturing side where, you know, the parts are expensive. They might be already trying to replace what they can. You know, some of this stuff has to go into like super pre-production already, and the circuit, you know, broke boards and all that kind of stuff have to start being processed and already. So they might be already looking to do a cheaper thing. My guess is we probably will get a PS5 Slim / Pro way sooner than we did previously because of how expensive these systems are going to come out the door. Again, like I was saying, this is a luxury item. This is not something you can go convince someone that they need to buy. You know, you can't convince someone that they need to buy a PS5 for whatever Blu-ray like you were able to in the PS3. You know, Sony owns Blu-ray, correct? If I'm not wrong, they own the license or whatever.
They were a minority stakeholder at one point. Since then, it's depleted quite a bit with a whole bunch of other different companies. But I think they make a little bit of money on the back end.
Yeah, it's like a VHS story, you know, reproduced. But you know, back then, 2006 and 2007, when everyone was buying those weird red spined HD DVDs, Sony comes out Blu-ray, and like, where can you get the Blu-ray? Well, you can get a regular Blu-ray, or you can get a Blu-ray that plays games. Later has Netflix, YouTube, music. So the fact that we live in a society that has all these all-in-one devices, is every device you have in your house, it's going to be hard to convince people. And I guess that's what they're trying to do, is soften the blow. If we only make this many systems and we can sell them by the end of the year, or we can sell them by March 2021, then it's going to look good because we're getting on what we produced and what we sold. So I guess they're just trying to keep their numbers, again, for the stockholders and all those people. They're trying to keep the numbers like level. They don't want to make 10 million consoles and only sell 2 million, and then you end up in a worse situation, especially in the time we live in. But I know, you know, people are expecting the high price, and I don't know what people are shocked by. That, I don't know, for some reason they think we're getting a $400 console. I don't know why you think you can do that in this day and age and then demand the games you want. So we're just in a tough situation. I just believe, it's going to be hard to get a PS5, you know, to wrap it all up. I do believe the launch is going to be rough to get, and I would love to get it at launch. I just don't know if I will be able to physically get it at launch. It won't be can't get it at launch because I can't afford it or whatever. It's going to be because I won't be able to find one if I don't get one.
Yeah, I mean, the last thing you ever want is consoles sitting on the shelves for a brand new console at launch. That's the last thing you ever want to see. However, I would not be surprised if the 5 to 6 million units that they plan on producing on that first quarter might be them at 100% capacity in this day and age. That might just be literally all that they can do with, you know, parts scarce, all these other companies competing for the same parts, and on top of that, a diminished workforce because of the pandemic. That might be them at full capacity. That is like, this is all we can do. The most interesting detail for me in this story is the fact that theoretically, if we got like a October-November launch, we're talking about a console that's 6-7 months off, and they're still planning on launching in 2020. That's an interesting thing. Now, Sony might not be, you know, dropping all the details. Who knows? Ghost can still be delayed. They could still delay the console. They've delayed console launches before, but at this point, they're getting closer. They're getting into the point right now where it's like, if you're producing and planning on a launch this year, you got to commit to it, and you can't boot it last minute. So if this close to launch, theoretically, you know, within that 7 to 6 month window that they're in right now, they're still planning on launching this year. I mean, that's an interesting detail that I think people should pay more attention to, the fact that they're still all hands on deck for that 2020 launch, which is, again, something that if you had to ask me and have me put money down, I was always going to say that they're going to boot it to 2021, just because, again, circumstances are so nuts right now. Money is so hard to come by. These parts are a mess. The whole production pipeline is screwed across the world. I didn't think there was a chance in hell that they'd launch it this year. I felt like maybe Xbox does, and they just boot it to 2021. But it seems like they're still planning on the 2020 launch too, and I'm curious to see how it plays out. I am not looking forward to the nightmare it's going to be to get one of these consoles. I remember previous console launches and the messes they were. I remember the Wii days. I remember how hard the Switch was at launch, and that they weren't even doing the artificial scarcity thing. So you have that was the Switch coming off the Wii U, and that was hard enough as is. So I could only imagine the PS5 coming off the PS4. Like, oh man, it's going to be a nightmare. I am not looking forward to that. Not to mention, again, who knows if I'll be in a financial situation, me amongst millions of Americans, where we can drop $500, $600 for a brand new console. Who knows? I don't know if the country will still be rebounding off this, or who knows? Theoretically, it's very possible that fast forward 7 months, we're still in quarantine. That's a possibility. Yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of a mess. I don't think we have the answers, and Sony sure as hell doesn't have the answers. I don't think anybody has the answers. That's probably why we're in the situation we're in to begin with. And I'm curious to see how it plays out, but it does mean something, the fact that this is coming out of Bloomberg, so this is a pretty reputable source. We're not hearing this from some random Twitter user. So at least for on paper, Sony's still planning on launching. So if you guys are planning on getting the PS5 or the Xbox Series X, be ready. Get them savings ready now, because get those tabs open now and start refreshing now, because it's gonna be a nightmare to get these.
Yeah, it's going to be nuts. I'm pretty much going to use my usual sources, and if I can snag one, I can snag one. I'm not going to pay scalper. I've never paid for a scalp system. I know someone who did for some dumb reason. But, scarcity...
I'd rather be patient.
Yeah, scarcity is going to be a thing, Like you were saying, the Switch. I had 2 Switch pre-orders, one on Amazon, one on GameStop.com. And this is before I worked for them, so, no secret intel or whatever. And, Amazon didn't ship mine. Remember Amazon's weird shortage?
Yeah, that was a mess.
I did have to pay. I ended up paying a little bit more because I had to pay shipping at GameStop.com, but I got it day one. Amazon had no problem sending me my extra Joy-Cons and my 1-2 Switch or whatever I bought through Amazon, but they were like, "Yeah, we don't have your Switch." And
I had to go through Target.
Yeah, that's just weird. I've never not just walked into GameStop, got the system, or Walmart, and get the system and walk out. But I guess that is a thing you do when you are trying to be an early adopter, and we like to discuss it. So obviously we want to get our hands on it as consumers, as not paid insiders or whatever. We want to see it from a consumer stance, what the system has. So obviously we would love to get it as soon as possible. There's going to be factors, again, personal factors. What if for some reason my job in the fall redoes this quarantine again just to be safe, or lawsuit, whatever it is, and I just can't afford it. You never know what's going to happen in those 6 months, which is why we keep saying it. And I truly believe that Microsoft and Sony should just team up on this one time and just move your consoles a little bit. I know the financial struggles that is for them, but just move your consoles just a little bit. Delay them into 2021 just to give them some space to breathe. And you can also just kind of read what's going on in the situation. If it got crazy worse, let's say in a world that everything got worse, you can respond to it now, not last second. Because like you said, a month before, this is not like a game where you can just a month before delay it and people will be fine. Certain websites take your money. So if you're gonna take your money when you pre-order, if I pre-ordered it and then last second you're gonna delay it more months, you're going to have to start doing refunds, and then that looks bad. There goes your pre-order numbers, and it's just a whole mess that you have to worry about.
Yeah, it's a whole mess, and I feel like this is going to be one of the tighter launches we've probably ever seen. A lot of people are going to be like, oh, it's going to be a nightmare to get it just like the Wii, but to be honest, the Wii was artificial scarcity. I'm just curious to see how it looks when the companies themselves can literally make no more.
Yeah.
It's going to be messy. This is unprecedented. We've never had a tight launch with also people tight on money, so that kind of double whammy. I'm not looking forward to it necessarily, and I wish it wasn't the case. There's so many good games that are still slated for 2020 that I feel like they could easily punt it into 2021, and there's not going to be this massive drought of lack of new content. But I mean, hey, if they want to launch, I'm gonna do my due diligence and try my best to get my hands on this console, but it's not something I'm looking forward to, and I think a lot of people are going to run into a lot of issues, and the scalpers are going to get involved, and you guys thought the NES Classic was going to be hard to get? Like, oh, I could only imagine. I could only imagine.
Yep.
All right, so I guess we can jump into our first loose topic. Now, we have 2 loose topics this week because the stories were a little bit lighter. So we're going to kind of, split it up 2 smaller topics here and just see what we get out of them. So the first one is going to be the importance of exclusives. Now, what I mean by this is different companies have different value propositions on their consoles. Nintendo specifically is a prime example of offering specific games that they make themselves that you can only get on their console. You are not playing Mario Galaxy anywhere else. And I know some people are going to be in the comment section like, hey, what about the weird NVIDIA thing they did in China? Different. We're not talking about that. I'm just talking about if you want to play Zelda, if you want to play Mario, if you want to play Kirby or a Yoshi game, you're going to a Nintendo console, period.
Yep.
If you want to play God of War, you're going to a PlayStation console. However, Microsoft has adapted a different technique, where it's basically play what you want, where you want. And there are still light exclusive, but for the most part, if you could play it on Xbox, you could play it on PC for the most part, especially with Game Pass being available on PC. So these are kind of 2 different approaches to the exclusive game. So the question is, to have a successful console in the modern era, how important are exclusives really? Is kind of an ambiguous play wherever you want, ease of use type situation, kind of like a half Stadia, half Microsoft approach, going to be advantageous going forward, do you think? Or is the traditional model of having an experience you can only play in one place gonna be the saving grace of consoles, similar to a Nintendo or a Sony? So that's my question to you: is how important are exclusives really?
So I think exclusives going forward that have roots is where it matters. And what I mean by that is the franchises that have people been playing for years. In a world, let's say it's no longer exclusive, but the Final Fantasy, let's say, was still exclusive to the Sony systems, which it was for a while. From 7 forward, if you wanted to play Final Fantasy, you had to get a Sony system, PS1, then you had to get a PS2. Those were 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yeah, and before that they were
12,
exclusive to Nintendo, so.
And they were exclusive to Nintendo, so it does matter. Nowadays it's hard to matter because now it's really only first party exclusives that exist. Sometimes you do have like timed exclusives, like Final Fantasy VII's timed for 1 year for some weird reason, and it works in those instances, but sometimes it doesn't work in other instances. So when Xbox One was doing that weird exclusivity with Tomb Raider, and they didn't want to talk about it, that it was timed, people were up in arms. So it's all weird that I think the franchises that have roots in those systems matter. It doesn't matter that there's that new PS5 game with the guys with a suit of armor, the Godfall. No, it's not Godfall, is it?
Greedfall?
Yeah, there you go. Or whatever it was, the new one coming out.
Yeah, I forget the name of it, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, with the armors and stuff like that. So
yeah.
that game's not going to be selling systems. But God of War 2 will sell systems, or whatever they call the next God of War. So if it wasn't for that history, the roots that it is in the place, God of War is the Sony property, and that if you want to play God of War, as of right now, you have to get a Sony system. So I think it only matters in those kind of aspects. Moving forward, I just don't think you can convince people to get a system for a certain game, and that kind of hurts Xbox in a way. So Xbox One, before they did the Play Anywhere initiative, before they did the Xbox Game Pass initiative and the Game Pass PC Ultimate, they were hoping people would buy Xbox One for Halo and Gears. That's their 2 hardcore titles, Halo, Gears. And we saw that was not true. Nintendo thought, they thought they could repeat history. They want to play Mario, Zelda, they gotta get a Wii. The Wii U did not sell, so people did not buy the Wii U for their exclusives. They had some good games on Wii U, and obviously we're seeing them ported on Switch where they're finding new life. But Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze and the Mario 3D World or Land, I forgot which one they were called, and Mario Maker and all these games that were super popular, those were exclusives. You can't play Mario Maker anywhere else. You can't play Yoshi. What was the Yoshi game on Wii U? Woolly World? Something like that?
Yes, I believe so.
You can't play those games. anywhere else, but yet they did not sell the systems that they needed to. So moving forward, I think exclusives are going to exist, obviously due to first party contracts and stuff like that. I don't think they're that important anymore. People are going to play where they want to play. When Xbox started turning things around and had this super powerful system, then you started selling consoles. Even though they were going head to head with, the Spider-Mans, the God of War, Detroit at the time, which was exclusive, and later we still have The Last of Us and all these other games still coming out. But their sales numbers are way more respectable because they have a powerful system and how much more friendly it is to access your games. And I know there's other features like backwards compatible that go into it, but I think expecting that just because Naughty Dog made a new game, let's say after The Last of Us, just because Naughty Dog is making a new game on PS6 or whatever, are you going to buy a whole system just for that one game? And I know some people will. But why do that when you can get another system for the same price and play the games better, bigger variety, and all these things? You're going to buy the system that you're more comfortable with and you're more familiar with. So obviously, when it comes to this new generation, I would lean towards a PlayStation because that's where I've always gamed. But, what if I can't get a PlayStation? What if there was no titles? Are you only buying that system for the exclusives? So they're important in a more retro, nostalgic fan base way than they are in a gameplay way. Because, to be honest, most of those experiences you get on PlayStation, gameplay wise, are recreated elsewhere on other companies and stuff like that. But it's some of that first party magic that Nintendo has, Sony has, and Microsoft has to an extent that helps make those decisions and makes those, because, just being on the other side, I've seen people when they're like, well, why would I get an Xbox when they only have Halo and Gears when, PlayStation has Jak and Daxter and all these other games which were exclusive at the time, and, God of War is always the big one, SOCOM used to be a big one. So it's weird to think that it no longer is important. People just want the better system now. And that's just such a loaded question. So it's interesting to think the exclusivity age is coming to an end, and we're starting to see that even with Sony. Nintendo's the only one that's really being like super greedy in a sense. I mean, they were all over Twitter, people were like jumping for joy that Breath of the Wild was $40 like 2 weeks ago on sale. That game is old now. Like, that game is years old, and you're telling me you're excited that it went down $20 when you can get God of War, which in my opinion is a better game, for like $10. So it's this weird thing where it depends on how the companies themselves are using their exclusivities and how they're respecting the buyer's choice. But how important are they to you now, though?
Yeah, I mean, and you covered it pretty extensively, so great job on that response. But the main point, I think the takeaway is exclusives are incredibly important to a healthy ecosystem on a game console, but they're not the end-all be-all. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just a part of the puzzle. You need solid hardware, you need solid services, you need solid third-party support, and then you need exclusives on top of that. And unless you have kind of all of those different pieces, then you don't necessarily see the success that your console may want. We've seen consoles have part of it. We've seen consoles like the Vita have solid exclusives, decent hardware, but then other parts of it are failing. There's some hardware issues like the memory card that really screwed it up. There's a lack of services that really screwed it up. There was a lack of investment on the first party long term that screwed it up. You have the Wii U, that the hardware was functional. It had amazing exclusives, but the services were there and the lack of third-party support. Third-party support matters too. So you can have all the exclusives in the world, but if the latest Call of Duty, the latest Madden are not on your console, that's going to hurt you with those certain people who like to play those games, period. Mm-hmm. When you have the massive, Modern Warfare come out, and that's selling millions of units, and it's the talk of the town for, that couple months stretch that it comes out and right after. And that's not available on a Nintendo console. That can hurt you. Now, luckily, Nintendo, that third-party support problem is no longer so much of a thing. It's, for the most part, been remedied by all these older ports that's really filled in that lack of a gap. But during that Wii U years, that really hurt them. Mm-hmm. Another example is even the Dreamcast, if you go back in time. That had some solid exclusives too. But all the biggest third-party games were not getting supported. And then eventually Sega kind of pulled their support, and then it had nothing. And then that collapsed and got discontinued itself. So it's a healthy ecosystem. And now Microsoft's got pretty much everything but exclusives. And they're having trouble getting traction. So again, it seems like you need to have all these factors working in conjunction with one another to have the ecosystem as healthy as it can be. If any part of it fails, it's going to hurt you. If you don't have the exclusives, it hurts you. If you have all the exclusives but don't have the third-party support, it hurts you. So again, it's kind of like you need that perfect machination of all these different factors to have it work. And I could hear the argument go both ways depending on what company you look at, why one part is more important. You could be like, hey, services are the most important. You need to give customers a good reason to buy. That's why Xbox is in such good favor with people. And it's like, but look at the amount of consoles they moved. The numbers don't lie. That's not a good look. But then you could look at other companies in the past who had amazing exclusives, and the numbers were terrible too. So it could be argued in both ways depending on what generation you're looking at, what company they're looking at. And you have to look at it objectively, like, unless a company in a console get all of the things right, it's going to translate into sales, period.
Yeah, oh, sure. That's all I have to say on the subject. I didn't mean to go on such a rant.
Oh, but, no, it's good.
But it's true. You know, it isn't that one exclusives are important, but it's part of a bigger pie. You got to have all the components. Like you're saying, that's the perfect way to say it is you need all the components. You need to hit there's a checklist that you need to hit, and exclusive is one of those checkpoints you need to hit.
Yeah. All right. So the second one is it's going to be a fun one. It's our favorite gaming mascots. Now, I want to emphasize favorite. These are our personal favorites. So we're going to get the kind of most established, goes without saying, mascots out of the way. So these are honorable mentions. First off, we got to mention Mario, the most iconic of all time. We got to mention Crash. We got to mention Spyro, and we got to mention Sonic. These are like the established properties.
Yeah.
That everybody knows are like amazing mascots that go without saying. But from there, now we're going to name our 3 favorite ones. So let's start with you. What are your 3 favorite mascots?
All right, so I try to go again. Obviously, if I were to go choices, yeah, Mario, Sonic, all those, and obviously Sonic. I'm a huge fan, but I wanted to go ones that I also really do enjoy and maybe people forgot about. So one I got that again, great icon. I don't know why he is stranded the way he is. I know he had a little game on Twitch. So Bomberman is a mascot that I don't know why. That's Hudson, right? I think.
I believe so. Yeah.
I don't know why they ignore him. You know, there was a couple years, especially on GameCube and like GBA era, where they were cranking out Bomberman games. Added some story modes. There was like a red and a blue version for like if you were playing as the Max Bomber and stuff like that. So I think he's just a really cool favorite mascot. I like the design. I was so excited for the split second when I saw him in Smash Ultimate, and then it was followed by that he was an assist, and it was immediately I was like depressed because I don't think he gets the respect he needs. They kind of crapped out that Bomberman R game, which
the Switch launch game.
Yeah, it was kind of bare bones. Not that it was bare bones really. They had some cool stuff in it, but the gameplay was kind of crappy and wasn't as solid as it needs to be. So that's one that I don't think gets much love and respect. Another one who fell from grace and then was able to come back a little bit thanks to Ubisoft, and that's Rayman. I think is just one that it's been quiet for a while. I know he got kind of ruined because of the
Rabbids.
The Rabbids thing. I know there was the Rayman Raving Rabbids, and there was the original Rayman 4, which was going to be much in line with Rayman 3, Hoodlum's Havoc, which he was going to fight against the Rabbids. Then it came to the mini game, and then we all know how it spiraled out of there. You know, the Rabbids were in a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Smash Brothers type game on Wii. They didn't put Rayman in there. They put they put the Rabbids, and it was terrible.
They got a crossover with Mario before Rayman did.
Yeah, can you believe that?
That's crazy.
When I saw that crossover, for sure I was like, the Rabbids are going to be in Smash before Rayman, which was depressing. But because we all remember that Rayman leak, quote unquote, that was a hoax for Smash 4, which would have been great. But he's just one that I think he's really cool. You know, he was able to come back with Origins and Legacy, I think they were called, the platformers and stuff like that. And he's got a couple good ones that are pretty much ports of those on the iPhone. I think it's time we see another one like that. I don't know if they want to go with that same art style. It's been working with them. I don't think Rayman works anymore in that 3D era, because there was Rayman 2 and 3 were really the only 3D ones that just were kind of lackluster. 3 is a little bit better, but it's it's like Sonic, where in a sense it really deserves to be. It grew up on 2D platforming, and that's where I really think it works. And the last one obviously is a little bit more fanboyish, and that's actually Sackboy from Little Big Planet, Media Molecule's Sackboy, which I think was just a creative character, and I think I'm so attached to him, and he's such a favorite of mine because of what he represents. The era of the PS3 when it was really on a comeback with the creativity, all the levels, all the costumes that they were able to do. It's more of the representation that he has than it is just like his actual games, because his games are just, Media Molecules play, create, share thing. So I think it's just more of what he symbolizes. I do think he's got a cool design, that knit design. The first time I saw that knit design with that big old zipper, I thought it was just so creative but so simple at the same time. So what are some of your favorite mascots? Or your top 3, I mean.
Yeah, so one of mine were Sackboy, so I'm like, I need to pivot and get a new one. So I picked another one. So the first one I picked is I wouldn't even say one of, it's probably the most iconic game mascot of all time. But because time has passed a lot and he's not as relevant maybe as he was one time, but if you talk to like the mainstream audience, they'd show him a lot of love. It's Pac-Man, period. The biggest, the most iconic, one of the oldest mascots in the game industry is Pac-Man. Now, he's not dropping annualized titles like he did at one point, so he's not necessarily in the talking point. But hey, he's in Smash. People show him a lot of love, and his games are fun. They stood the test of time. That kind of form factor of just his profile view. You drop that to anyone on the street, and they immediately, oh yeah, Pac-Man. Yeah. So the recognizability, iconic nature of it, you got to give him his credit. The second one I choose is a weird one, but if you don't remember, maybe 10 years ago or so, Sony started pushing a new kind of look in conjunction with Sackboy, a new mascot, and that was Sweet Tooth. Now, you remember Twisted Metal, you remember Sweet Tooth being in All-Stars Battle Royale, and there was a little moment where Sony was trying to push him as kind of the mascot, and it was a really weird time, but I gotta give my guy Sweet Tooth a little bit of credit. He was a fun character to play as in Battle Royale, even though that game was interesting, to say the least. And yeah, I like the Twisted Metal game, so I just wanted to give him a quick shout out. And then the last one, I wanted to show Xbox a little bit of love. And they don't have the most mascots to choose from, but I wanted to give a quick shout out to Master Chief, another iconic mascot character. Now, a lot of people, when you say mascot, you immediately think of kind of like a smaller chibi type character. But hey, man, that's an iconic look. You drop that helmet anywhere. I mean, that's something people recognize. And I wanted to show Xbox a little bit of love because they try. They tried their hardest, and people have a lot of love for Master Chief, and it really means something when for like 10 years, 15 years straight, all people wanted to know was under that helmet. That means something. That means people really care about your characters.
Yeah, so. That's true. Yeah.
Do you remember those days where everybody's like, how does he look?
Yeah, I remember when someone like, when cam breaking was, because Halo eventually did come to PC early on. I don't remember if it launched on the same time where the original Xbox had it. I remember
the Combat Evolved
I remember when people broke cameras. This is when people first started modding stuff, and they were like I saw a video, and they're like, what's under Master Chief's helmet? And there's nothing there, guys. If you look in the data of Halo, there's nothing under the mask. There was no face designed. He's literally.
I remember them doing something weird with Halo 3 too, where they like broke into his helmet and you saw like a big nose guy. Like they obviously did not intend for you to see that. Like it was not a normal face.
No, yeah, like, everyone, T-pose models. That's what usually under these things when you break camera and stuff like that. And we've gotten clips of what Master Chief looks like now, usually in the younger time and stuff like that, and like comics and stuff like that. We get what he looks like. But yeah, when you have such a mystified character, and Xbox knows it because there's all those Xbox Series breakdown videos, and on the chipsets, it's a Master Chief helmet there. It's not Blinks the cat, but it's Master Chief.
Bubsy.
Don't forget the Time Sweeper, man. So that is such an iconic one, and like you were saying with Pac-Man, like you said, anyone will recognize that. You know, that's something that will never go away. In the day and age where everything's destroyed, people are gonna remember Pac-Man, more or less. You know, more people will recognize that than who Kratos is, if you want to look at it that way.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, when you see all these movies that do these references and try to be, you know, hip and stuff like that, they use Pac-Man. If you remember, Scott Pilgrim has that horrible pickup line about Pac-Man. It's just he's so relevant and he's never going anywhere.
You remember the movie Pixels?
Yeah, on that poster, what's that big old pixel thing? Pac-Man. You know, it's not.
I wish that movie didn't happen sometimes.
Oh, I refuse to see it. I haven't seen it. With
I watched like 25 minutes of it and I was just like, I can't.
Peter Dinklage is in it, right? Isn't he in there?
He's in everything.
That's true. He was your ghost in Destiny at one point.
Yeah, and they just patched him out like that never happened.
Yeah, I did play Destiny, but so I like to refer to it as like I was original Dinklebot because I did play most of most of Destiny with him as my bot before. I think Nolan North does it now, or did it?
Yeah, I cannot believe though they just patched him out. It's one thing to add like a toggle option, like it's like, hey, if you didn't like his voice acting, you could download this patch and toggle it back to just erase him from existence is nuts to me.
So that was always a weird thing because so they always claimed it's because they couldn't get him back for the DLC. And I'm like, wait, so instead of just going from the DLC forward and having, I don't know, your ghost smashed or get an upgrade, they were like, no, we're going to re-record it. So you had Nolan North go back, re-record all the lines. And,
it was obvious because it was just terrible.
Yeah, he was just kind of, he wasn't as enthusiastic. Nolan North has, been doing it for way longer. Peter Dinklage is more of obviously a film actor than it is a voice actor. And it takes a little bit different to do it. Respect for both people who do, all the people who do that kind of stuff. I probably wouldn't be able to do any of it, but it's different. So when you have a film actor come to read lines, he was so boring.
It sounded crazy. I've gone online and went onto YouTube just to listen to that voicing because I didn't play Destiny at launch. Yeah. And I get when you have like a perpetually online game like that's gonna theoretically last years, you don't want to just leave such poor voice acting there in perpetuity for all brand new players to have to experience. So I get why they'd, re-record that. But I just don't understand how that made that pass in the first place. I mean, it was just so obviously terrible. And shout out to Peter Dinklage. I'm not going to necessarily crap on, any time they get a non-voice actor to do voice acting in a thing. Because, hey, Kiefer Sutherland did a decent job as Snake. Even though, again, that's not David Hayter. That's not the iconic voice we did. But he did a decent job for an actor. So
yeah. His problem was just that everyone wanted David Hayter. Yeah,
it was more so of, who it wasn't rather than the fact that it was Kiefer Sutherland. Yeah. So I can't crap on actors, stepping into the voice actor field, but jeez, man, sometimes I just remember these randomly things and I'm just like, what is the gaming industry sometimes?
Let me tell you, it's so interesting because there's things that happen here that only ever happen. People's names just getting ripped off of titles, people getting patched out of it. Remember that big, I don't know if it was Yakuza, where
the guy who did the crime
not even in that crime recent, he'd done the crime years ago, so he was getting penalized in Japan, China, somewhere.
He had a little drug charge or something like that.
Not only did they patch his voice, they patched his face.
In the game about mobsters. I don't understand.
That's my thing. They went and interviewed real criminals for GTA, and again, I know it's more of a culture thing. For GTA, they went and talked to these criminals and how they did certain things to get these aspects. In Japan, they patched a guy's face because I think I don't even think that he did cocaine. I think he mentioned that he did cocaine 20 years ago or something like that. Weird, not that I condone.
And I know their drug culture
use,
is different, but
come on.
Yeah, no, that was crazy. I know their drug culture is way different out there, so I'm not gonna, hold them too bad to that. But it's come on, guys. Was anybody gonna really okay? They leave him in the game theoretically after these charges come. Is anybody gonna be like, well, I'm not buying that game because he's in it? It seems so dramatic.
Yeah.
It's not like he got Me Too'd or something crazy like that where you don't want any association with him. A little drug charge is not gonna tank your game. But hey, that's the Japanese industry. I'll let them deal with their controversies the way they want to deal with it. But it seemed like an overreach to me.
Yeah, certain things they do. Imagine if Activision went back and took Kevin Spacey out of Advanced Warfare.
Oh yeah, he was a prominent thing in it too.
He's the antagonist, and he's in there a lot.
Who knows? Maybe they would have if that came out right before Advanced Warfare came out. Who knows? Maybe they would have.
The graphics are really good in that game, so I don't imagine the amount of money they would have had to do to redo it.
Yeah, but they ain't no getting around being like, that's not him. It just looks like him. It's not a Beyond Two Souls situation. So.
Yeah. So.
All right. So that was episode 12 in the Tuck. Still in quarantine.
Yep.
Still for the foreseeable future going to have these remote episodes for you guys, but it's working well. We finally got the video component up and running, so that's good.
Yep. And we got for those who don't know, we have never made an official announcement, but we're splitting up the topics, so people who don't have the time to watch the whole video, you can now watch it subject by subject on YouTube throughout the week, in addition to our collection videos, gameplay videos, discussions, and all that kind of stuff.
Yep. All right. So, till next time, this is Jabrel, and this is the NeoVintage Podcast.